Well, we are back. We are with Philip Shepard and Nicole Shepard, I guess. So, a little bit about introducing you guys self first. We wanted to just let the viewers know kind of who you are, how long you've been in real estate, how'd you get into real estate. So you can go first.
Yeah. Got into real estate way too young. My parents went to real estate brokerage, so like I think my whole life. And so I got my real estate license in 2008. The best time to get your license. If you weren't around, that's when everything was on fire. And then we sold vacation homes in Chicagoland area on the lake. So that was kind of the core of everything. But I remember licking stamps, driving around in a car, writing addresses down way too late at night. And then get into real estate. And then eventually over the course of time, my parents sold the real estate brokerage, and then I could have moved anywhere I wanted to in America. And I chose Northwest Arkansas. And then so I got my license. I moved my license down kind of part of 2021, but I started officially in 2022 with Collier Associates, the greatest real estate brokerage of all time.
That's what we like to hear. That's what we like
clip
to hear.
it, clip it.
Mine's a little bit easier. I got my real estate license about 11 years ago. I wanted to have a job that I could have more flexibility with my son. You know, he was a baby at the time. And so I always lived houses and things like that and wanted to just get into real estate. So I did it part-time, moved into it full-time about 2 years later, got my broker's license. And then I moved to Collier Associates 6 years ago, and I'm a leadership broker here.
That's awesome. That is so cool. All right. So next thing we kind of want to go over is obviously real estate is always changing. That's one of the cool things about it. If you get bored easy, real estate might be for you. The market's always shifting. But more importantly, these days, we have a technological shift that's happening. Real estate has very much been by the book. I think last time you were on, we talked
exactly about that. Just the shifting into the agentpreneur and people having to be their own company now and everything.
Yes. Yes. And it's really transpired even more this year, I'd say, to where people have got the power and the skills with technology to run the business themselves in a way, and to be equipped to do that. So what do you guys think you have seen the most change in the technology side in the last 5 to 10 years?
Probably for me, just because I've seen such, I started before Facebook even existed, or like really, and then all the way to now. Even for the last 10 years, for me, it's been the ease of getting homes out to people. And that's not necessarily saying it's better MLSs, it's better video, it's better social media, it's better, sadly, Zillow. And so all these other adjacent softwares or things make buying real estate easier for people. Whereas when I first started, it was like, hey, we're going to go caravanning with cars and MLS sheets, and we get it shipped every single week to our office because the MLS didn't really exist at the time. So going from being almost like a gatekeeper in some fashion, I hate to use that word, but a gatekeeper, to almost then partnering, because at some point back in the day, it's like you were a gatekeeper, like here are the properties that are available. Now it's more of a partnership, which leans way better for everyone, of course. So allowing the partnership to happen between real estate agents using technology now is much better.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I just think it goes along with what we said before on the first one, which is just that it allows agents to do the tasks that they need to do to own their own business. So whether, it's Canva and being able to do really marketing, I would say, I think before it was like, oh, you want to be in social media, you hire a social media manager or something. And now people can do it themselves. The tech's made it easier for people to do things themselves.
Absolutely. I get asked all the time, what's the best camera to buy?
Yeah.
And 99% of the time, my answer is you already have it. It's in your pocket. I mean, honestly,
just touch your pocket. Yeah. Just touch your pocket.
Like
I'll put something there for you.
The way that things have transpired just on a cell phone to change real estate or any profession. A lot of real estate's not the only one that's had a huge change. Obviously, I'd even say in a similar thing, law and legal work has changed. I know that my lawyer said that back 10 years ago, no one started LLCs hardly without going through a lawyer. Yeah. Now they can get on the internet,
do it online yourself,
start up their own company, be done. Watch a TikTok.
We can have an LLC by the end of this podcast.
Yeah, it'd be done. It'd be filed and done.
Let's go.
So, okay, what challenges do you think real estate agents still face today that technology is starting to kind of break into helping?
So I think, repeat the question again.
So I'd say a challenge that maybe tech hasn't fixed yet, but it's kind of working towards, that you see in the next year or two. Hey, technology is really going to continue to help. Like you said with the MLS, I think that's one for sure, is Zillow and Realtor.com and all these external MLSs have started really becoming a powerhouse for where people want to shop for homes.
Yeah.
Is there any other ways that you've seen?
I mean, I think, and I know we'll talk about this here in a little while pertaining to AI, but there is the gap of technology is the fact of like, you can give someone all the information and all the knowledge, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be good at what they do or care about what they do. And that's something that's going to always be a human problem, is just the care factor. So there's that. And then the second factor is going to be, which aligns with what I said before, which is guiding someone through the process of purchasing a home. Now, it doesn't mean necessarily the contractual side, because that's more cut and dry to some extent, but it's more of like, hey, you said that your grandma's gonna be moving in with you in like 2 years. Maybe you shouldn't buy a house with a 2-story house, and so those are the kind of things that people have to be aware of. It comes with experience. It comes with just caring and thinking through every situation. And that's where technology might be able to get better, but at the same time, that's a human to human thing.
Agreed. It's kind of like the algorithm aspect of Zillow, where the Zestimate doesn't really mean much. We talked about this on the last podcast because the human factor.
Yeah.
It's like Zillow sees it as a great part of Bentonville, but a human sees that it's backed up to a highway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like there's little
Yeah.
things that I don't know how long it would take to replace or if it would ever be able to. So I agree.
Yeah.
Do you have anything on that?
I would just say that the consumers' access to information. They're going to be able to access. We saw a huge shift when they could access the information to the homes on Zillow. We're seeing a big shift that they can use AI or these tools on Google and things like that to access information, even about the home buying process and about the area and that type of thing. So that definitely is going to, continue to shift what we do versus what they can access on their own.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah.
So AI, you touched on it for a second. We'll kind of break into this world of AI that everyone's so intrigued in. What ways would you say you've seen it reshape real estate the most so far? And I know we're just at the start.
Yeah. I'll be super practical. And the way I've used it is, and I recommend any agent to do this just to be knowledgeable of the area. This is where it goes back to the care factor, is that technology enables us to care more and faster. Meaning when, and I've talked about this quite a few times, but it's like when Fayetteville released their new zoning rules, I took the old PDF of the old zoning rules, uploaded, said, hey, here's the old one, here's the new one, tell me the differences and how it can affect people moving to the area. And so it compared the two, gave me a down, and then says, here's the analysis. Now I could go through it and say, okay, this is where I want to focus on, here's this. Now, I made a video on it, of course, but that's because I care about knowing what's going on in Fayetteville. Same thing with Rogers, and Bentonville just released their newest one about their whole new zoning thing. So that's a very practical edge of stuff that agents can use. But I think the difference is that people need to see it less as a plaything and more of this is a very useful tool, and then start thinking outside the box, like what can it do? Because I think oftentimes people see AI as like, oh, you sometimes tell me a recipe, but it's like, well, yes, it can do that, but it can also analyze documents and search for you, dig out certain things that you'll never find on the internet, and then start researching for you. I see it more of a research assistant than anything. Yeah, in a lot of ways.
Well, and I think that's a really good way to practically look at it, because I know a lot of people in my generation look at it as this answer to all, and they really want it to be able to achieve basically the impossible. Yeah. Whereas what you're saying is, the time saved, you could have compared and contrasted the difference.
100%.
But you probably saved a couple hours not having to compare.
Yeah. And that's not Nicole.
Well, maybe that's the difference, is that we know the amount of hours it would take because we always had to do it that way. And so then we definitely see the benefit of like, oh, this would have taken me 3 hours to do, and I just did it in 20 minutes. I did that with, there was a builder who wanted to do some land, and their bank had asked for like a broker price opinion, and normally in a broker market analysis for certain areas, where they wanted to build. And so of course I went to AI and I said, hey, give me the information about this. I can consolidate it into it. And I put it in, my own words at the end of the day, but it gave me all the information I needed without me having to go look it all up again.
Absolutely.
There's one thing I want to mention that I've been toying with recently, which is not super practical, but it'd be interesting, is the reason that Zillow is not successful is because it doesn't know what the inside of the house looks like. And I'm sure Zillow can figure this out, but it's like I've been able to take photos of a house and say, this is the comparable. Now compare it. Now go find the other listings and compare it to the others based on the photos. And this way, because the problem with Zillow is like, okay, you don't know if it's updated or not. Let's say I have a house that's going to go on the market that's more updated, but it thinks that it's not as updated. Then I can say, here's the photos, here's the updates, and then let's say an AI, which it can do now, go out and say, based on these photos and the updates, based on the comps that we researched and the photos that we looked at, it should actually be at this price. So this is where the gap that a lot of these like MLS tools and Zillow have to catch up to, or they're going to not be obsolete, but they're going to see some gaps in data.
And it's knowing the right prompts. It's knowing what to ask it and how to prompt it.
Prompt engineers are a real deal.
Yeah.
It's a real thing.
It is a real thing. Well, and I think the way that you practically try to implement AI, for example, Amazon, I don't know, I don't want to get too nerdy into this, but it's a cool thing. Amazon announced that Alexa is going to be AI. And it seems kind of cool. I wanted to see more of it. And I think the coolest feature that they announced and highlighted that a lot of people were super excited about is, you guys probably know with homes, if you want to set up a smart home, set up lights, switches, you want to have automations, all those things, it kind of takes a little bit of a tech background.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
By the time that you spend the money and the hours that it takes to set it up, I'm like, I'll flip the switch. I'll be fine.
Exactly.
That's what my logic is.
Well, and that's what always has been the problem with smart home tech is the way to connect it all, and like one brand doesn't work with another and all that stuff. Well, Alexa in the new update, what it's going to be able to do is you'll be able to plug it in, and the second you turn on a smart object of any kind, it will be smart enough to go find it, set it up for you, name it, figure out what room it's in, and you're done. Which is a really cool use case.
Just sign me up. And just to backtrack a little bit on what you said about, I say prompt engineering, just in case you're, of course, agents watching, but the idea is like, if you're going to talk to an AI, you have to talk to it a certain way. And it's worth going to a YouTube video and say how to talk to an AI, because it sounds stupid because you think like, I'm going to talk to like a kid. But it's like, you can tell it to like, hey, fact check yourself. Go dig around this, go find this, go here, go there. And you have to kind of figure out the best way, use case for it to tell it what to do. Now, a lot of times they know what to do, but giving it better prompts to correct itself and to rethink some things is always great. So that's what prompt engineering is, like telling it what to do, that it can't always necessarily think for itself.
Yeah, and you can look up a video of it. I saw one the other day where a guy put in the exact same prompt, but it was worded differently. And the AI answer was completely different for each prompt. How it answered it.
Now, an example is to be very practical, is like, if say, with a very classic example is, I'm going to use ChatGPT to write me a property description. That's great. But then you say, write this, look at you can say, here, upload the photos. It can look at all the photos for you, write a description, but I want it written as someone who is wanting to buy a commercial property, who wants to make a profit right away. And then it'll rephrase things and say it the proper way as someone reading it. So you have to know your audience. So that's why I say prompt engineering is kind of a big deal.
Or who you think the most likely person to buy that home would be. You know, if they're, if it's going to be, a boomer that's trying to downsize, or if it's a first time family, they are attracted to different types of language, and you would want your description to kind of attract that audience.
And you can tell it, which I've done before, is you can say, hey, I'm a real estate agent. Make sure you don't violate any laws. So it'll know not to say great for families or stuff like that,
That's a good way to do it, because there's always those weird neighbor laws that people don't even know.
If I get billed from neighbor, I'm going to send the bill to my AI. Like, this is your problem, not mine.
Pay this.
But that's an important thing. You're going to get responses for, and you still have to oversee it. I mean, it's not a copy and paste. It's you can tweak it, and make sure that it's.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a super practical way that people can start utilizing it. And I'd say, contrary to that, which you kind of hit on, so we can go back a little, a lot of agents nowadays, I hear it from people it's mostly people who don't want to start learning AI that say this, but you always hear this thing of, well, AI is going to replace us one day. Oh, AI is going to replace the real estate agent. What are your thoughts on
that? I think not in my lifetime, but I think by the time that real estate agents are replaced, housing will drastically change. I don't think any of us will be alive, realistically. You might be like in 70 or 80 potentially, but I'm more bullish on agents being around for a while. Now, I think the use of AI will definitely kick out. It could be the thing that says only the best of the best live in the real estate world. I could see that happening. And then at that point you move to a more of a attorney model where there's one head agent and there's adjacent agents that are like training to become better agents, to say it that way. But it definitely will eliminate a lot of need for this many agents. But again, there's a lot of gaps in between. There's just ideas, or like, if I'm going to go talk to a client, I have to have a microphone attached that records all of our conversations, whether there's privacy issues, there's other things involved. So there's a lot of gaps that have to fall between an AI being hyper productive as a real estate agent, because I can absorb all the information as a AI would, and I can synthesize it in a certain way, but it has to be listening all the time. And I could go back as a human and kind of recap, but I'm going to miss things. But if it listens all the time, then once we get to that spot, then that where it really gets sort of, or records all phone calls, records all text messages, all emails, and dives into that and records everything, then you can start seeing a big replacement of agents.
Agreed. Well, and I think the biggest thing too is the liability aspect. Someone has to be able to replace the liability that you guys, when you do a deal in a transaction, you do hold a little piece of liability on that. And that's going to become a nightmare of sorts until it's worked out legally.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Who do you sue?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. We have an LLC.
Whoever
We have AIs that are
data.
we can by the end of this podcast. Okay.
And I mean, agents may not like my answer very much, but I would say if you're replaceable, then it's gonna replace it. Do you know what I mean? So you need to be irreplaceable, or at least focus your business on the things that are irreplaceable. Like I see a lot of agents say, I don't just open doors. Okay. Can a robot open doors for you? Is there a way for people to access? Yes, absolutely. That is a replaceable thing.
I mean, self-driving cars are not that far away.
Yeah, self-driven car with a robot in it, takes you, shows you the house, takes the information, has all the information about the house already in. They ask all the questions. Those things are replaced. Like that can happen. But there's aspects of our business, negotiation. It's an emotional purchase. There's lots of these things that we'll have to adapt and focus on.
I agree. Well, and I think the human aspect, like you had touched on earlier, is the most irreplaceable thing, that whether AI gets good enough to become human-like or not, the consumer trust, it will be a pretty hard thing to overcome for a lot of people to look at an AI instead of looking at a human and saying, is this a good house for me and my family?
A good example is even last night, I'm trying to get a deal together in Missouri, and I for sure thought it was not going to happen. He's like, I'm not going to buy this house because of the inspection unless they reduce the price. Well, I said they're not going to reduce the price. He comes back and says, he doesn't say anything. He's like, okay, let's move ahead. I'm like, okay. So an AI, if it was just on data, wouldn't understand why this is happening, because he communicated to it that it was going to terminate. But then it has to think, like, why is this happening? And then how does a human a human should have told an AI, you're wrong, I want to go ahead with it. And it's going to be like, but why? You said it was going to. So it's like, there's going to be a lot of problems and now everything's solvable, but it's going to be a long time before those human, very, very core humans that you can't necessarily put into data, like an emotional thing. It's like, I don't like the house, even though, yeah, it's a good price, everything. I just don't like it. It smells funny. Well, what does it smell like? I can't smell. It's like,
Well, you guys know well from being agents, but I heard an agent the other day who happened to be my father. Yeah. He was dealing with a house in Pinnacle that he was representing the seller, and he told his seller, do not remove the TV mounts. They want you to keep them.
Yeah.
The seller forgot, removed the TV mounts. Well, the buyer was not very happy and wanted to kill the deal over it. Was that mad.
Yeah.
And so my dad was able to negotiate in, I think, some things that stayed, some appliances and stuff. Well, AI would look at that as a very unfair trade. Yeah. You could fill holes for $50.
Yeah.
But it's the human trade. It's the, hey, we messed up. You're going to get an incentive for it.
Yeah.
So,
and those are going to be those top agents. Like, those are going to be the ones that are making the step in and make those decisions for the. We're talking like 50 years from now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, but still, like, that will eventually come to happen. Yeah.
Well, and it's good to go ahead and think ahead on it.
And
and that's kind of how we got to where we were. Is someone was tired of carrying around the book.
Yeah.
Right.
Going. Yeah. Here's our listings and our brokerage.
Oh, those are the days.
Now well, you guys have been pretty involved in tech personally, and so you have something called Client Keeper.
Yes.
Do you mind to touch on that? Fill me in, someone who does not know what Client Keeper is.
I'll go first, and then I need Nicole to tell a story. So what happened was like, I've always been a CRM nerd. When I first started in real estate, I was like, I would give people tours around Lake Holiday, that's where I grew up, in second homes, and they'd be like, oh yeah, my daughter goes to ballerina classes, and my husband does this and does that, and all those different things, and I'd just go back on my keyboard and smash away at the information, because when they came back to me 3 months from now, I'd pull up their information, like, oh, how's your daughter doing at ballerina, or how's this, or how's that, and be like, oh my god, you remember that? So like it would solidify them as my client for life. And so ever since then, I've always had a CRM. Then I got into, obviously I moved to North Arkansas, still had a CRM, always done what I've done. And then me and Nicole got married, and then this is where we come into play here.
So once we got married, and he was like, okay, our finances are now going to be joint and everything. And he knew I was obviously a real estate agent. And he just was like, hey, what CRM do you use? And I think at like the look on his face when I was like, I don't have one.
I was like, what?
And he was just like, what? I mean, like about collapsed on the floor. He's like, you're leaving so much money on the table. And I was like, really? Like, I have a pretty decent business. I mean, I do good, like, and I never got one started and stuff like that. And then we kind of deep dived into the reasons that I never really started one. And now going back to watching him as a top producing agent, following up with clients, doing all of the things that you need to do to get there, I wasn't doing, and even though I had a successful business, I was like, well, I said, here are the things. Like, I was a single mom. I was already learning so many different types of tech. I already was, trying to juggle like motherhood and showing houses and doing all the things. And having a CRM that I had to go home to at night, log everybody's information in. I just knew I wouldn't do it. And it would be this weight on my shoulders. And I was just like, I don't want that on me. So I'm doing okay. I'm just not going to add that pressure to my life, basically. And he was like, well, how can we make this easier for you? And I was like, well, I'm not that different. I said, I have basically at that time, I think I was signing for 35 agents. And I said, you're one of 2 who have one. And it was like, we hear all the time, agents, you need a CRM, you need a CRM. And it's like, well, why don't agents have a CRM then? What are the pain points? And I said, I'm not really alone. So we kind of then started like, okay, what are the pain points? I was like, I need it on my phone. I need it to be on the go. I don't want it on my desktop or laptop and I have to go do it at night. I don't want to have something that I have to like the data entry part of it. I just won't do and I'll feel behind. Like we just kind of outlined all of those things. And as he talked to more agents and realized that they had the same problems, he of course is Mr. Fix It. And he's like, I'm fixing this,
I'll find a solution.
Fix this.
So basically Client Keeper is, like I said before, a CRM. But it's really based on people who, and again, like Nicole saw me as a top producing agent, but like the core idea of it is like, you don't have to be a top producing agent to use it. And you don't have to do what I do to become just be clear. If someone wants to make $100,000, $200,000 in real estate, that's great. That's awesome. Like you don't always have to chase $1 million or whatever people want to make. It's like you can have a very successful career doing that, obviously. Mm-hmm. And so this is a CRM designed for people who want to make data entry as simple as possible. And we all know in this room that the core thing for a successful real estate agent is you have to follow up. Like you could do everything else wrong for the most part, except for get sued. And as long as you follow up, you will have a successful business.
Absolutely.
And that's any sales. I don't really consider real estate sales, but it's any sales position. You have to follow up.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like, tell me if I'm wrong, but in my head, even if you go from someone like you who's very successful, closing deals, transacting, it's almost hard to look at anything negative. Like, why do I need to add something? Everything's going pretty good.
I think the difference is I never knew where my next deal was coming from.
Yep.
I had no pipeline. I relied on obviously good service. And he was always surprised. He's like, you haven't touched base with these people for 3 years.
Yeah. I don't know why they call you. No idea. They must be that, you must be that awesome.
I was like, I'm an awesome, realtor. But that was just like happenstance, and I really, if I look at it from the outside in now, I mean, I didn't really have a quote unquote business, because I didn't know where that next customer was coming from.
Mm-hmm. Whereas like now, or even before Client Keepers, like I could go to my list and be like, oh, I have 150 people. I can just text right now and be like, you want to give me money?
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's a joke.
When time goes slow though, you can lean in on the CRM.
What happened was that I just, when I CRM, it's like I sit down every Tuesday and I just would sit down to my list and just like text everybody. It could be as simple as just like, how are things going? It doesn't have to be this big grandiose like, hey, I've been thinking and praying for you and sacrificing animals to get you to buy a house. It's just simple as like just making sure things are going good on your end.
Well, and have you noticed an increase for you in referrals because of that? Because I feel like staying top of mind, someone might not sell their house every year, but they might have had a talk with their neighbor yesterday about selling, and then, oh yeah, Nicole, boom.
That's just it. It's just being on that person's mind that you are that you're an agent and you're still out there and you're still active, and it's there. You may have just sold them a house even 2 months ago, but maybe their neighbor now wants to sell, or somebody at work now wants to sell, and so having those touch points is really good.
Yeah.
And you had a great example yesterday when you just looked up the notes.
Oh yeah. So what happened yesterday is I had a client call me, Maria, if you're watching this, Maria, she should not watching this. She's moving. I forget where she's moving from. It doesn't make a difference. Her son went to Florida for surgery, and I had attached to her notes that her son went to surgery on Florida on a certain date. So when she called, obviously her name came up on my phone, and I went directly to Client Keeper to my notes, and oh, that's right, her son went to surgery, because it's literally in my notes. And then I asked her, oh, how did your son do from surgery? And she's like, oh my God, you remember that? Thank you so much. This happened yesterday. And so she was super appreciative and shocked that I remembered it. But the difference was that I would have never, I might have recorded that, but realistically, I probably would have never recorded that, because with Client Keeper, I get done with let's say she called me 6 months ago and I got off the phone with her. I'd go to Myra, which stands for My Real Estate Assistant, and that's baked into Client Keeper all the way through. And it's basically, you can go and dump all the information you want inside of Client Keeper, and it's managed for you. I got off the phone with her 6 months ago, and she said, hey, I'm not going to be around for a while because my son's having surgery on March, whatever. And so I went to Myra. I said, hey, Myra, new client, here's her phone number, here's her email. Her son is having surgery on this date. First of all, set a reminder for me to follow with her, which I did. And then also add it to my notes as well. So that was just all audio notes. So I never had to type anything.
And that's the main thing. So once we solved the problem of, okay, now it's on the phone, we also simplified it, because a lot of CRMs have these they'll build websites and they do auto, email campaigns for you, and all these things that agents don't even set up and they don't really need. They just need to be reminded, who do I follow up with this week? What are the touch points? Keep my database organized, that type of thing. So it's in the simplest format, super intuitive, but we never solved the problem of, okay, the data entry, right? You still have to sit there and plug in the data entry. So then when we were like, okay, if we build in virtual assistant, all you have to do basically is, it's like you're calling, you get off the phone with a client, you can basically audio in to the virtual assistant that's built in, tell them what you just talked about on the phone, and they put the data into it. So, because your CRM is only as good as the data that's in it. Yep. And so how do you make it the simplest, easiest possible to get the data in there?
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's super cool.
Yeah.
Are you guys constantly updating and changing it? What you guys' future?
You should have seen what I was doing right before this. Yeah. Yeah. There's always updates coming out the pipeline. There's a big update coming in April, and we'll have a full functioning desktop app and a brand new mobile app. And that's we've always, it's very public, but it's we're really at that point now in April, okay, no, we're really going public. Because we have people in Virginia that use it, and people in Kansas and California and a bunch of other places. But we've been really we want to make sure it's a really good product, and it is a good product. But we want to make sure it's that next level, that when people open it up, it's able to use, they don't need to call us to figure out how to use it. Yep. And they don't, but it's part of it is also we want to make super simple.
Well, and I like how you guys are testing it first.
Yeah. Well, we tested it with the Collier agents here at Collier first, which was great. They jumped on board and kind of helped us, because the thing is that the hardest thing to do is simplify it. You have all these ideas, but really you just want to get it down to the simplest form of what the person needs to do their business the best and keep those clients, build those relationships.
Yeah. Well, I feel like every agent's so different that it was really smart to roll it out this way, so that you could see, all right, what are the commonalities? What's kind of the flukes? This agent wants this, but that's 1 out of 100 of them.
No, and every time that somebody would ask a question, they text us a question, be like, hey, how do I do this? It's oh, that's not intuitive enough. We need to fix it so that it that it's super easy to use.
Yeah, that's super cool. That is a super cool technology to break into. Yeah. I feel like it's super useful and practical for kind of the everyday agent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's one of those tried and true
there's
software,
only so many agents that sell 60 to 80 houses a year. The typical agent really sells maybe 5 and hopes to sell 12 to 20. And so how do you get them from that? And that's the agent that needs this.
So you guys obviously have a huge one coming out. That's exciting. That's rolling. When did you say the update rolls? April?
Mid-April. We were finalizing designs now, and then it'll start. Yeah, so mid-April is a good
super cool.
Yep.
That'll be super cool. We'll link that down below too, so people can check it out. So next, would you say are the biggest emerging technologies that you've seen kind of be released in your real estate world right now? Do you have any that you're like, okay, that is a huge, I know you said Zillow is a
Yeah.
little behind on it, the
Um,
AI stuff, but
we can talk about AI, of course. We've mentioned that quite a bit, but I think something that's like really untalked about because it's super nerdy stuff is just the amount of data making decisions, because there's like the secret world behind that from a consumer level, that everything runs on data. And whether it's like insurance companies or this or that, but as AI or other people add more data to the, I mean, it sounds super like matrixy, but once you add more data to the system, then reports and everything gets better, meaning that you can make better decisions. And once AI can start seeing houses for photos and start making decisions based on that, eventually, once there's enough data out there, AI is going to be able to scan the internet and be able, and this is probably like a year away, or there's probably, it's already being in development. I'm sure Zillow's thinking this too, based on the photos, based on the comps, based on everything, based on current rental stuff. And because it's all, it once, the difference, the problem with data is that we have one section that says, here is rental data, and it's kind of locked away. And we have one side that says, here are the photographs, but we can't look at them yet. And here we have one side that's kind of sectioned off that says, well, this is what the house sold for. And this is what's, this is, and then also you have a different section that says, here's what Bentonville is going to be doing in 5 years. If you can align all those data sets together, which they'll never be able to align together independently, but AI can look at them and make decisions based on that. So that's when AI or anything can be like, hey, I've spent the last 3 hours scanning all the homes in Bentonville, and based on the plans that you gave me or that just came out, based on the new zoning map, based on this, based on that, this area right here is going to be the hottest area. And these two homes are currently undervalued because in 2 years, the rental market's going to go here based on this data. And based on this, we're connected to lenders.
yeah.
That's really, once you connect all these data sets, this is where it's going to become very interesting for investors and also consumers.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I saw 2 or 3 days ago, I was talking to a guy in this, he's a computer science friend of mine, works for JB Hunt on their tech side. And I asked him, what's the biggest way you guys are implementing tech? And he said, well, the biggest thing we're working with right now is data brokers. And I was like, wow, that's a whole job now. He's like, it's probably one of the best paying jobs in the world right now.
It is, yeah.
They buy data from Google or whoever you've given your data to, and then they sell it to independent companies that need that data.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, and that's been going on for a long, long time. But the difference now is that how do you write an algorithm, or it's getting way too complicated, but it's like, what do you write, or who writes or who looks at it to be like, oh, this is a good choice. This is good. This is a good thing. And how do you make that algorithm? But now with AI or any sort of anything, it's like based on historical trends on algorithms, we're going to then adjust it based on this. And even if you're in Tornado Alley, if you're in earthquakes, if you're in tsunami, it's like that's where it gets fascinating. That's why actually insurance went down this year in Arkansas, is because they implemented AI across a lot of old agencies got kicked out, new agencies came in, and the new agency are more AI based. And they said, based on our models and algorithm and all the data we've seen, we're predicting that there's not going to be these storms for the next couple of years. Therefore, we can make a profit. Therefore, we can lower insurance rates. So it's interesting how the free market works, because the old insurers, like we had a $1.5 billion loss. We're out of here. The new markets came in and said, based on our new technology, we feel and based on data, we're going to be fine for the next 5 years. Therefore, we can lower rates.
Yeah. Well, and that's really cool because we talked about it on FTP, me and Riley, this last month. But the way that insurance can utilize AI, like you said, they can lower these rates. If they see a storm is coming, they can do preventative damage. So they can go ahead and, hey, we're going to give you $5,000. We want you to do this, this, and this to ensure your roof doesn't blow away. So it's really cool how these companies have practically started utilizing AI. So let's see here.
What do you think, Nicole? I want to hear your opinion, because we haven't talked about this.
No, we haven't. The thing is I don't really like research it or know any that he dabbles with everything, and then he basically tells me whatever he thinks is the coolest. And if it's something that I can use, then I start playing with it. But I don't really look at any of the new, anything that's coming out. It's all very fast. Do you know, it all is coming out so quickly.
And this is all highly impractical. And then as they do with cheese, the good stuff will filter to the top, and then that'll be that. So I'm not necessarily sure what's going to be, but I think the biggest winner is going to be investors. And I hope that there's like, you have your problems with BlackRock and other ones, and they have unlimited capital to do all this stuff. So that's one of my concerns, is just like those large corporations that can leverage models that can make highly predictive analysis based on everything to make purchases. So that'd be fascinating.
Oh yeah, that's going to be
that's not going to be fun. That's not a good thing.
Yeah. No, I've seen that. I dabble in the trading world and see how scary that stuff gets pretty quick. So what, Nicole, you can hit on this because I know we've done a training on this before. What would you say? Client Keeper can be in there. It's okay. It should be in there. What would you say though? Give us like 3 to 5 apps that you say should be daily drivers for agents. Maybe not even daily, but just like, hey, this is a really good tech stack to have on your phone.
I mean, honestly, the 3 that I would tell any new agent coming in, Canva, Client Keeper, and ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Honestly, you can do almost everything you need to with those. Get good at those, and then add on if you
in Canva, we've never really dove into this much, but me being more marketing, digital marketing kind of world, Canva is fascinating to me because back in my day, which was 2 years ago, so long ago, but we used to Photoshop everything, even the most simple things. Like you wanted a flyer for a house. What are you going to do other than Photoshop? And that becomes very, very heavy workload. And if you want to keep it cheap, it's going to look horrible. If you want to spend a lot of money, you're spending a lot of money. So Canva has been a really cool way to see agents empowering themselves to do graphic design of sorts.
Yep. You can get the text, from ChatGPT. You can get all the designs and everything from Canva.
Yep. I'm gonna go a completely different direction because that's the exact same answer. I think any real estate agent would probably say, like, if you just very broad stroke, Canva, ChatGPT.
Or the 3 they would use the most.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that are super practical. I would say if anyone wants to get super weird stuff, WeVideo, WeVideo. That's a cloud-based video editor. So anyone who ever wants to dabble into video editing, as you know, you have to either have CapCut, which is probably the most user-friendly one on the desktop, but it's still a desktop app. So you have to have a decent computer. Then most people will use, obviously, Final Cut if they have a Mac, and then they have Premiere, and there's other ones out there. But WeVideo is cloud-based, so if you want to get into video editing, that's the simplest, most affordable one, for sure. And then I would say if you don't want to do, if you don't want to pay for videos of with people shooting videos, let's say do photos, Animoto is very good. It's been around forever. I used to use it back in the day. You can upload photos, put music to it, and it does it for you behind the scenes. We've been using one called Blonde Waterfall. It's about $100 per video, and it takes your photos. I need to show this to you. It's wild. It takes your photos and pulls it from realtor.com. And then it makes a legit, really, with using AI, like zooms it out as though you're walking through it. It's wild. It's really cool.
Super cool. I was wondering when that.
And you don't even have to upload anything. You just upload the link.
Here's the link.
Realtor. So
It's awesome. I'll be fully transparent about this. Since you were saying the thing about agents, kind of honestly, 50 years from now, there could be some obsolete that happens. That's why I used to be very heavy in the real estate media marketing world, and I've kind of stepped out of that for the reason of, I think it's going to be one of the first to go,
probably,
because it's so, AI has gotten so good at turning photos into video and even predicting what video. I used it the other day. I didn't shoot one whole side of a Walmart building, typed in need the other side, and it predicted what would be there.
At that point, you're in your life, you're like, my life's a lie. I'm living a lie.
It took me how many years to learn how to pull in like this, and it just does it.
Does it.
No, the amount of time saved for that kind of stuff, and affordability. I think AI affordability is pretty expensive right now, but we'll just see that continue to go down as competitors get into the market, correct?
Yep. And again, I want to mention the practical stuff. My stuff is not practical in any shape or form, but the one I'd also recommend is 11 Labs. That is the best audio creator and mimicker. So if you ever struggle wanting to do a podcast or talk over anything when it comes to media, you upload 5 minutes of you talking, and it mimics you identically.
Yeah, with the transcript.
Oh,
so you just type it in.
I've used it 100%.
I've used it for voiceovers. They were very high-end voiceovers.
Yep. And so it's one of those things where there's the barrier to entry is lowered, but also the excuse level is gone. Like if and this goes out to any practical agent, and a sense of like, if you ever feel like, I can't get on video and I don't want to do these things. I promise you there are plenty of tools that are very user friendly now and cheap that you will never have to put your legit face on camera. You can do plenty of other stuff now.
I agree. I think that's a really good point, is the excuses have gone away. There might still be a little barrier of entry. There might still be, but the excuses, because anyone can learn it.
And if they're still struggling now to do it, it doesn't mean everyone has to do social media. That's not everyone's jam. But at that point, when you start making it, this is the scary part that Nicole will mention, is that the scary part is that if you're not willing to do those certain things, not even social media, but start using these tools or tools that make your job easier, you become useless. And that's when a robot will take your space. Yeah. That's what it boils down to. It's like, if you're not willing to do some of these things to just better and serve your clients better, then that's when a good example is, Nicole knows this because I've been harping on this for way too long. I go to McDonald's very few times. And I got annoyed for a long time. I was like, why are they putting these stupid kiosks here? I hate these things. And then what happened was that I went to McDonald's a couple times and I got really annoyed at the people that are taking the order, the humans. I'm standing there, they're looking at me. I'm like, hey, can I order? And maybe it's intentional, but then they got it wrong and they're kind of like lackadaisical. Like, okay, it's like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna take my finger and touch buttons now. And ever since then, the human became useless and the robot was less annoying than the human. Therefore, now I use the kiosk. Yeah, that's how that process works.
So don't be an annoying human.
Yeah, don't be a human annoying. Yeah, be useful. Yeah,
well, and I think people get almost aggressively mad when you admit that, hey, yeah, you might, if you're sitting still, you might lose your job. But that's just the world, and that's the way things work. Like you said, I went to Chick-fil-A and they have that pull through line now where you can scan a QR code, you order on your app, and the food is ready when you pull up. The other day I went there was 2 cars in the human line, and there was 15 or 20 just like wrapped around for the pull through. And our line went faster than the 2 people. And so I'm like, see, there's certain things you have to admit and be honest. And then if you're honest with it at the front end, you can adapt. You can be the guy designing that. You can be the guy orchestrating it, whatever it is.
And this has been examples since humans been around, where it's like going from a person pulling a horse or with a buck to plow fields to someone and sitting there to driving a tractor. It's like there's these big leaps in technology, and at some point you're like, you have to, like, we don't need you doing these things anymore because we have technology to replace this. Go find something better. So this is not anything new. It's just going to be, it's just one of those times where this is one of those unique times in history where it's like we see a huge leap from horses to cars, and then from lamps to electricity to whatever, so it's like these are big leaps.
Well, and tying it back into real estate, like you said, the big leaps happen, but the really good agents, like you said, the solid people that are doing the best work for their clients, they're negotiating, they're following up, they're using Client Keeper, whatever it is.
Well, they're going to look for opportunity in anything. So, using the tech to help them build the business they're already building. And I would say, like, if you look at an opportunity like, hey, you wanted a showing agent, or you want somebody who can, answer questions like 24/7 or whatever. I mean, if these things start becoming available, look at that. You can just increase your business because you can be showing multiple agents, with AI or robot. I mean, it makes you expand your business. So there's opportunity in everything.
Well, and it like pulls you out of the operator role and into the CEO role. CEOs aren't afraid of losing their job to AI because they're the ones pulling the strings, telling it what to do, whatever. And so I think it helps agents not be an operator, but a CEO if they're of their company.
100%.
So, manpower.
I mean, honestly, you could be able to scale now with AI. You might not be running a Northwest Arkansas, Missouri kind of brokerage. You would be running a national one. You could be Philip Shepard all over the U.S. So.
I could be Philip Shepard, Salt Lake City.
Like
never
a
know.
team all on your own.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for the tech input. It's been awesome. Been super cool for me. I love the tech background. Super fun. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, of course.